Hey everybody, my name is Ben Putley. I am the CEO and co-founder of Alkimi. It's my absolute pleasure today to be joined by Dr. Lisa Cameron, MP in the House of Commons. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. I'm Lisa, Dr. Cameron. I was an MP in the House of Commons from 2015 to 2024. And during that time, I had the privilege to chair and to found the first all-party parliamentary group for cryptocurrency in the Parliament, yeah.
There's some amazing statistics that have come out of the ETFs that have launched in America is what I think of particularly. And I think BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF now has a higher dollar value than their gold ETF. And
right.
I think if you look at the adoption of certain types of technology, you had the internet, which was adopted fairly quickly. You had mobile phones, which were adopted even faster. And the adoption of blockchain is outstripping both of those, which it makes sense. Like they're stood on the shoulders of two giants. And I've been to... There's Solana have something called the Super Team, which is where they basically have an office space. I think they're just going to move around the corner to Liverpool Street, and people are just showing up and working on Solana's blockchain, which is amazing to see that there is like energy and vigor for people to want to solve problems. And I think particularly with developers, when they see a better solution to challenges they faced in in old technology they were developing with, and they find the new solution, they just don't think about the old solution anymore. And I think that will continue to accelerate. But you're right, it does need the right framework, because at least I experienced this was when you start doing blockchain or crypto, you are just like immediately thrown into not even the deep end of the pool, but just like the sea, and it's like there's some massive whales or sharks, whatever the analogy you want to be, but you're swimming with like people that have been doing it for a very long time. The learning curve is super steep, and I think the quicker you can flatten that learning curve and have people learn about it sooner, I think the better, frankly, for fostering the great talent that we have here in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is, I guess, that is where it was quite a partisan issue. So when the government changes in the way it does in America, it then changes quite dramatically, quite quickly, because everything changes really quickly.
Yeah.
So, but I think often the UK has always worked very closely with America, and I think that should provide some tailwinds where perhaps it had been headwinds in the past for...
Yeah, I think that helps with the impetus, doesn't it?
Certainly, yeah.
And I think probably with the engagement of Elon Musk as well in the US, things are going to have much more of a tech focus, is my impression. And therefore, I think this industry, it is going to go from strength to strength quite quickly globally. Yeah,
I agree, because it's... Talking about Alkimi for a second, we're fundamentally, we support people that are spending money on ads, right? And America is one of the, if not the biggest market that spends money on ads globally. And we'd always been a bit wary of that because of the way that the regulations weren't clear, and that when you're trying to plan more than 6 to 12 months in advance as running a business, you won't take that risk on, really. And I'm a British person. We have an office in the UK. I love working in the UK. And the UK is also a very big ad market. Talking previously before, a lot of campaigns are planned from London across Europe. So it's key in kind of the European strategy for a lot of brands is planned from London, and then then locally, there's often some like specific ways to speak to certain markets that local planners understand. But like the main strategy tends to come from the UK. So there's a big opportunity for the UK to kind of grow its share of the ad dollars that are managed here versus perhaps somewhere else, or at least wherever it may be. And I would hope that Alkimi can help the UK continue to do that. We're talking about a big market, but I think by 2028, there'll be $1 trillion that's spent on ads online. It's not small potatoes, and people often... There seems to be less focus on the ad market versus like financial markets because it's got more uses. But
I think like part of that is because the parliamentarians were just getting up to speed with some of the fintech use cases, and obviously then broadening it out. I mean, we did some work in the Parliament highlighting even, you know, other issues like UNICEF using blockchain technology for aid and fund transfer, and the transparency around about that gets to the most vulnerable person. You can show the taxpayer where it's gone. You can have more of a sense of security that it's being used for the right purpose. So there's so many different use cases, and I think that's probably where we're at now, including your own service and so many others, is demonstrating these use cases to parliamentarians so that their education continues to build. And obviously with a general election this year, we had a huge turnover of MPs, so we're not quite sure, I don't think, at the current time as to where the base level of education is, and it might be that some of the foundation level type of awareness raising education is also very important just now at this stage, just to rebuild that.
Even myself, just the third time I'll be there, I will feel a bit more you know, kind of like know the drill. You know how to go in there, and you know where to go, and you kind of know what to expect, and that just allows you to feel a little bit more open with about perhaps what you'd share and what you wouldn't share, and that kind of thing.
And of course, the really exciting thing about the UK Parliament is, well, I mean, it's known as the mother of all parliaments, but it's actually the people's parliament more than it is the politicians' parliament. So you should feel able to go in and out, and you know, and it's there for people right across the UK to engage with. And I think probably one of the positive things from the group has been, you know, increasing that level of engagement generally with the industry. Subsequent to moving from Parliament myself in May, because education was a huge part of what I was doing, and because when I started, and I'd explained to you that, you know, nothing much had been happening in the Parliament at the time, I felt quite isolated doing this stuff myself. So what I've been doing since is I've founded the Global Legislators Forum in Digital Assets, and that's like, I suppose like an APPG, but it's not bound to one Parliament, so it brings legislators together from all different parliaments to speak about shared best practice, because this is a global industry, and one of the things is that, you know, when you're in the Parliament in the UK, for instance, you might not know what's happening in the UAE or what's happening in Japan or Singapore, or what's happening in the US. And, you know, I think we need to be up to speed with what's happening in multiple jurisdictions to share principles and standards, but also so that jurisdictions understand how quickly this is moving as a sector.
It is, lightning. I always think that when we're not moving forward, it does feel like we're moving backwards in this sector, because it's one of the things that makes it so interesting. Actually, I do feel very fortunate. I've been able to co-found a business that is building on this technology that I think is going to change the way, well, for us specifically, the way in which ads are bought online. And I've worked in ad tech my entire career, so it's cool that I get to do this job. I enjoy it very much. But it does, you look out the window and you're like, oh my God, they've done this one thing and they've done that thing, and this company's doing this and they're doing that, and some of the numbers involved in it are astronomical, and you're like, bloody hell, I need to get the numbers up a little bit, you know? So it's...
and I want MPs in the UK Parliament to speak with counterparts elsewhere so they understand the need to move at pace, because I do want the UK to be a hub. I think this technology is vital for the future of most economies, you know, which are, I mean, we're going to live in a digital world, so the UK has to be at the forefront of that from my perspective, and therefore the more that people can engage with their counterparts in other parliaments, the more they can understand how quickly policy is being developed, regulatory standards, perhaps think about competitiveness and you know what we need to do in a bespoke way for the UK.
Because I think just geographically the UK is positioned so well. Like, I always find this, I can speak to people that are east in the mornings and then west in the evenings, and you can have like quite an expansive conversation just in terms of where people are that you're speaking to and how easily you can get to places as well from here too. You know, it's like it's perfectly positioned to be the hub of it, as you say, right?
Absolutely, and I think the thing is we've got like common law. You know, have so many sort of positives in terms of the level of fintech development already in London and right across the UK, and reputationally as well. The skills that are here, the universities that we have, and you know, obviously, I suppose there are a number of languages that are used commonly across the world, but English is really, you know, one of the most prominent of those, if not the most prominent. So we have a lot of advantages.
Certainly, yeah.
And there's no reason we shouldn't be there at the forefront.
Yeah, I agree. The sector's going, like regulatory wise, or however you want to answer the question really, on its current trajectory, and like where would you like to see it? What trajectory would you like it to be on? And what needs to be done to kind of up the ante a little bit? Yeah,
I mean, I think for me the main thing that we perhaps hadn't resolved at the time the Parliament dissolved for the election was the kind of the implementation aspects. Companies being regulated here, how quickly that could be done. You know, not with a kind of lowering the bar, but, you know, with good actors who wanted to be compliant. How can we engage more with them? How can we make sure that the companies who want to be here can stay here? Because my concern throughout the whole summer has been, and into, you know, the autumn has been dialogue with organisations who want to be in the UK but feel that they, you know, might be better placed going to another jurisdiction at this point in time. So I think we have quite a small window of opportunity, and we need to therefore get the kind of practical things in place that businesses are saying, this is an issue for me remaining or coming to the UK. And really seriously looking at those things and making sure they're in line with the political drive to move things forward.
It's like the table stakes really needs to be sorted out for it to, as you say, even become a hub, because it can be.
Yeah, access to banking. When I was over in Paris, they were telling me that, you know, in the French regulatory system, if you're regulated there, then access to banking is kind of built into that.
Right.
So then you kind of think, well, that makes it easier for companies to be there, perhaps, you know. And so what do we need to do to make sure that we're on a level playing field? They obviously also have a kind of grandparenting route into MiCA, which is a huge, you know, EU base. So we need to be thinking about how do we make things that we're doing interoperable as well. So I think there's quite a lot of kind of foundational work that needs to be done.
And do you think there's appetite in government for it at the moment, or do you think that there's other sectors which are perhaps a bit shy? My mind jumps to AI, for example, that are perhaps a bit shinier than blockchain, or do you think there is an appetite for it?
Well, for me, it's kind of like the one sector in a sense. I don't see that you could work on AI in isolation from looking at digitization and Web3 and blockchain, and because it's, as I say, there's going to be a kind of convergence of all of this. And, you know, I was at an event the other week where someone was telling me about quantum, which I'm not up to speed with. So I feel like this is all it's going to all work together to create the use cases. So there's no point in siphoning things off and saying, well, this is about AI and this is about this and this. We need to have a kind of overall approach, I think, as to the sector as a whole, and how we fundamentally attract businesses here to develop these use cases and be the innovators. And then we'll see how AI and, you know, blockchain. And so, for instance, even like looking at health cases, I was speaking to counterparts in other jurisdictions who were telling me about health records on the blockchain. So that's something new. We're looking at, you know, real world assets like housing transactions. I've been doing some work with Code Lab, and they're, you know, looking at tokenizing property. We've tokenized an amazing apartment on the Thames. So, and then with AI, I was asked to launch something called avatar therapy, which is a mental health therapy. So all of these things are kind of working in unison, aren't they, to try and make things more seamless and easier for our everyday lives, so that we can perhaps have the avatar therapy as a pilot, obviously, but it looks like it's got good outcomes. It might suit some people who may be on a waiting list waiting to see a therapist. So there's lots of ways that we need to integrate all of this together. Once those sorts of underlying issues are, addressed, and I'm sure there are others that industry could bring to the table, then, it's really about looking at what's happening elsewhere and kind of what works, bespoke regulatory regime that's probably quite light touch, I would think, compared to some others on regulation, but is still, of a high reputable standard. So getting that balance right is going to be really important, because what I want to see is a shift from what's being said to me just now, that businesses want to be here but they're moving elsewhere, to that businesses want to be here, and not just are they staying here but they're coming here. Right. So I think that's where I want to
would be cool.
Have the what's happening at the end. And I think, like, from a governmental point of view, it's not just about, I started off 2022 asking questions to Treasury, which I continued to do. But by 2024, we were asking questions to education. We were asking questions to science and technology. We were asking questions to the department that deals with UK aid. We were, actually, with the vast use cases, there's not a department that shouldn't be getting questions about this type of technology. Yeah,
certainly. I'm going to speak with Dame Meg Hillier tomorrow. She's our constituent. So I'll be telling her about Alkimi, and I think she's the chairperson of the Treasury, if I'm right. So,
she is, and she's such a very established member of Parliament who does excellent work. She was previously chair of another select committee, did great work with that. Very sensible MP, who I'm sure she'll be very keen to hear all about your business development.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot of Parliament in 1 week, I have to say. But
you'll be all parliamentary.
I will, yeah. But Dr. Cameron, thank you so much having a conversation with me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I wish you all the best with your future efforts, and you're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thank you so much, and it'll be a pleasure to hear how you get on as well. I'm sure you'll go from strength to strength.
I'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
With AI, with Web3, that this was all going to converge, and that basically it's going to change a lot of the way we do things.
Certainly, I had another conversation with Nathan from Kinesso about ad fraud and the technologies and practices that Kinesso use to ensure that they eliminate that from all of their brands' media buying.